And we actually knew that there were UFOs that crashed inside the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union recovered spacecraft from alien technology, just like we had. There were different alien species visiting Earth. It wasn't just one particular alien species from one particular star group. We knew that there was at least 5. Only the first craft's interior was observed by these photographs that we obtained. There were no instrument panels, switches, knobs, buttons, or steering mechanisms. 3 seats were present at what appeared to be a control panel. Hello, my name is Richard Doty. I'm a former intelligence officer with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. Today's presentation is called Tandem Sled. Now, it won't mean much to you, but that's a code name for a project that the United States government had to secretly collect technology from inside the Soviet Union. Now we're talking about back in the 70s and 80s. The Soviet Union had technologies that we needed, just like we had technologies that they needed. We were far advanced in most technologies than the Soviet Union was. We knew that our missiles, our aircrafts, were more superior to their missiles and their aircrafts. But the Soviets had things that we might not have. Now, when we think about alien technology, Earth is a big place. We were not naive enough to think that UFOs only visited the United States. The world's a big place. And we actually knew that there were UFOs that crashed inside the Soviet Union. How did we know that? We had spies inside the Soviet Union, just like the Soviet Union had spies inside the United States. Espionage. Espionage occurs between every country in the world. And our number one enemy at that time was the Soviet Union. So we had to recruit spies who reported back to us not only regarding military things, but also technology. There was a place in the Soviet Union called 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪 Yar. This is a map of 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪 Yar. This is a place that the Soviet Union did most of their secret work. It's also an area where a lot of nuclear tests were conducted by the Soviet Union. This map is actually from that era. It shows places that the Soviet Union conducted tests, places where they stored highly classified materials, and also where they stored recovered extraterrestrial crafts. That's right, you heard me right. The Soviet Union recovered spacecraft from alien technology, just like we had. The Soviet Union had their own Roswell. The incident happened in the eastern part of the Soviet Union, just north of the Chinese border. They had their Roswell. They collected debris, collected a craft, and even alien bodies. This was a highly secured location back in those days, but our satellites could see it from the air. And, of course, we had agents that were recruited that could get inside 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪 Yar or actually worked inside 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪 Yar, who were reporting back to us. But there was actually an operation that occurred to get a team inside there that was quite elaborate, still highly classified, because it discloses sources and methods. And I'm not going to talk about how we did it or who was involved in the team, but it was successful. We actually got a team of people in there to examine the craft. The operation, or tandem sled, the operation involved the acquisition of advanced technologies from the Soviet Union. The operation began in the late 60s and involved several different intelligence methods, including photographic, signal, communications, and human sources. When we talk about human in the world of espionage, we mean human intelligence. The actual spy that was able to go in to a location, penetrate it, or works there, and get the material that we want and bring it back and give it to us. Now, human operations are extremely sensitive, highly classified. We don't want to disclose the source, and we don't want to disclose the methods he used to communicate the material back to us. We knew, the U.S. intelligence knew from these sources that the Soviet Union recovered at least one, but possibly two extraterrestrial crafts, and they were being stored at 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar. Again, how did we know this? Well, going into details about exactly who told us this, I know, but I'm not going to disclose everything about it. But a Soviet military officer who was stationed in 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar and went to East Germany in the 70s told us about it. Who was he? He was a spy. We recruited him while he was in East Germany. He reported back to us regarding 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar, about the facility at 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar. 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar was a Soviet military base and missile testing site 60 miles east of Volgograd in the southeastern section of the Soviet Union. 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar was a launch location for Sputnik 1. Remember, Sputnik was launched in the late 50s. That was actually the first satellite to be launched from Earth. The Soviets were the first one to launch it. From 1957 to 1961, the Soviets conducted 5 above-ground atomic tests at 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar. Area 12 and Area 102 contain a vast area of underground facilities for storing and analyzing technology. We know the areas of 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar because our agents were there. Not only our agents, but a special team of people went in there. And again, that's all I'm going to say about it. Soviet scientists and military personnel were restricted to the base. Support for the area was received from a town 25 miles away named 𝗪𝗛𝗕𝗏. 𝗪𝗛𝗏 was a community where some of the scientists lived, but they couldn't tell anybody what they were doing out at 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar. From 1970 to 1985, numerous U.S. intelligence operations were conducted at 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar in the effort to obtain evidence of the captured spacecrafts in the Soviets' possession. Now, we knew they were there. We knew the Soviets had them someplace, and we figured they were there, and our agents confirmed everything that we wanted to know. These operations involved human sources penetrating the secret base. U.S. intelligence recruited agents who either obtained jobs at or near the base, or other agents were recruited from the Soviet military. The man that started this all, as I said earlier, was a Soviet military officer in East Germany who had worked previously at 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar. There were a lot of underground facilities at 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar that was storing highly classified materials that the Soviets considered highly classified. We needed to get inside these facilities to look at these extraterrestrial crafts and see what kind of technologies that these particular alien crafts had that we didn't have. Now, we had, during this time period, extraterrestrial crafts, the Roswell craft in 1947, that craft that crashed there, and the one similar to, almost identical actually, to the Roswell crash that we found in 1949 in Pelona Peak. Now, these were alien crafts. Of course, we learned a lot about the alien craft from Roswell the crash site by 𝗩𝗦𝗦𝗧, who we had in captivity until 1952, we had other alien crafts that crashed in and around the Southwest, Utah, Nevada, and Arizona. We wanted to determine whether these crafts that the Soviets had were identical to the ones that we had or entirely different. Now we knew then, in the 70s, when we were conducting these operations and even into the 80s, that there were different alien species visiting Earth. It wasn't just one particular alien species from one particular star group. We knew that there was at least 5. The Defense Intelligence Agency classified 5 different alien species that were visiting Earth. And they actually gave them names, such as the hepaloids, quataloids, the tranthaloids. I don't know why they named them that, but they named them. They were all different species, all came from different star systems, meaning different planets, and all had their own technologies. Not each of the crafts were the same. They had different propulsion systems, different energy systems, and totally different technologies. And even the ETs themselves were biologically different from each other. So we wanted to know, is there a possibility that the Soviets had a craft from some other star group that we didn't know about? So we mounted this intelligence operation, codenamed Tandem Sled, to send in agents, collect intelligence whichever way we could, voice intercepts, signal intelligence, and try to find out what they had. The cover and clandestine penetrations of the base allowed U.S. intelligence to obtain key knowledge of the spacecrafts being held by the Soviets. So the operation was successful. Our agents were able to get out the information that we wanted. Not only did the agents get out and tell our operatives inside and outside the Soviet Union what was at 𝗪𝗪𝗧 Yar, they were able to smuggle out manuals talking about exactly what these alien crafts were, what the Soviets thought of these crafts, the analysis that the Soviets were doing on these crafts compared to what they had in their technology. The operation recovered 36 photographs of both crafts. So now we know there were 2 crafts that the Soviets had in their possession. Examination of the crafts revealed the propulsion systems and the electronics inside the crafts. It was also determined that the crafts were entirely different. Bingo, we found out. The 2 crafts that the Soviets had were different technologies. So they came from different star groups. Meaning of the technologies that the Soviets obtained, the meanings were explained differently in these Soviet smuggled out manuals, than we could really understand. And not just the languages. We had people that could translate Russian and English. It's the analysis that were done by Soviet scientists, which were different analyses than the American scientists conducted. Now, you got to remember, there's Soviet scientists, there are American scientists, scientists from all over the world. They have different thoughts, different beliefs, and they apply things differently. And when I'm talking about meaning, the documents at first were confusing to our scientists. But eventually, over time, other groups of scientists, American scientists, got together and started realizing what the Soviet scientists were trying to analyze or put together regarding these 2 different extraterrestrial crafts. We never determined which star system these crafts originated from. We never could determine that. We could determine from these manuals and from what we gathered from the Soviet Union, that the Soviets didn't know much about what we had. Well, that's great news to the ears of US intelligence. That just means that our counterintelligence systems are working, or were working back then, keeping our secrets away from the Soviets. Examination by US experts of the evidence obtained at 𝗪𝗧𝗧 Yar revealed the crafts had different propulsion systems. The first craft had some type of antimatter system. There were two chambers, one containing a positive ions and the other containing a negative ions. A third chamber was present, but scientists could not determine what the third chamber was for. Now, we're analyzing, again, what we got from the Soviets. The second craft had an unknown type of propulsion system. The system was so complex, US scientists could not understand any of its functions. Now, we gathered this from the manuals, and we gathered this from the fact that the Soviet scientists couldn't explain in the manuals what the second propulsion system was, or even compared it to anything that they had, such as maybe a nuclear propulsion system. Again, this is in the 70s and 80s, and the technology, the world technology, hadn't advanced enough to understand alien technology much. We had crafts at Area 51. The Soviets had crafts in 𝗪𝗧𝗧 Yar. And I'm sure that there were other countries, such as China, that had crafts in their secret locations trying to analyze it. The second craft had a magnetic metal ring on the bottom of the craft. It was believed that the ring moved when the propulsion system was activated. However, scientists could not understand the function of the ring. Only the first craft's interior was observed by these photographs that we obtained. There were no instrument panels, switches, knobs, buttons, or steering mechanisms. 3 seats were present at what appeared to be a control panel. Handprints were embedded into the panel. Large viewing monitors were above the control panel. That sounds like the cockpit. That sounds like the control area for this alien craft. Again, we only observed the interior of one craft. Immediately, our scientists took this information and compared it to what we knew, or what we had at Area 51. Lo and behold, the second craft was the same. It was one of the crafts, similar to one of the crafts we recovered near Kingman, Arizona in the early 1950s. So now we know that one of the crafts was similar to what we had, but the other craft wasn't, although we didn't know a lot about that craft. These crafts were piloted by ETs placing their hands in these embedded panels and probably controlling it maybe with their minds. The interior of the craft was small. There were no rooms, portals, or storage bins in the craft. The sitting area did not contain a metal bar that would have held the pilots in place during travel. Now that's interesting right there. These crafts can, we think, defy gravity. How do they work? How does that interior cockpit or control area keep the aliens or the ETs from being harmed by the movement of the gravity? I mean, certainly our pilots can't fly an aircraft 700 miles an hour and stop on a dime. It would kill the pilots. But these crafts can do it. How's that work? Maybe the entire cockpit was some sort of had the ability to sink in and hold the pilots in the chairs. After years of studying the crafts, Russian scientists secretly approached US scientists under Operation Copper Green. Copper Green was a joint secret program between the United States and the Soviet Union, trying to understand and explore together extraterrestrial crafts and extraterrestrial entities. as we understand, this operation continues today. Although I'm no longer in intelligence and I no longer have access to that information. But other people who are inside intelligence, who are talking to the outside people, such as myself, tell us that, yeah, copper green is still in existence today. The scientists from Russia now and the United States are pooling their knowledge and resources together, trying to understand alien technology. They have the crafts. As we understand now, today, the Russians are allowing US scientists to travel to 𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 or wherever the Russian government has these crafts today and study the technology. Now that, of course, means that we are bringing Russian scientists from 𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 to the United States and probably Area 51 to share technology. Is that good or bad? The government doesn't think it is, obviously. I'm sure the Russians coming in to Area 51 are closely monitored. And I'm sure our scientists going to 𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗧𝗧 or wherever they're going to study alien technologies that the Soviet Union had are strictly controlled. But at least they're sharing this. And they're sharing it with the, hopefully the outcome of understanding alien technology and maybe reverse engineering something that will better mankind. Now, we have to worry about what the Russians are going to do with this, whether they're going to use this technology as military, and of course, they're probably worrying about what we're going to do with this technology. But this presentation was to explain what we did as the United States government back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s to obtain technologies from alien crafts that the Soviet Union had. How we were going to use that technology to understand the alien technology that we had and determine whether the Russians had something that we didn't have. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Until next time, I'm Richard Doty. Thank you.
If you liked this video and you want to see more amazing content, go ahead and check out the next video on our channel.